пришли.
Colleagues, welcome and thank you.
Я работаю в компании AirVision.
I work at AirVision. I'm a system analyst. I have early experience. I used to be an information security analyst, and I have some experience of operating in a SOC. So today I will be looking at the problem that I will be discussing today from two perspectives: as someone representing a vendor and also as someone who coded herself. I will talk about the most common errors, the ones that I made myself, and what I know from my colleagues' experience. We'll talk about the rules and the rules of correlation, and let's see how we can write them so that they do not eat up all of your resources. Let's start with the mistakes. Here are some of the key failures. The first one is no filter. It's only natural that our correlation rules depend very much on the logic that we want to embed into the code and the rule to respond to, well, I don't know, Windows or Kaspersky antivirus. There will be two different rules. The logics will be different, and we would like the data flow to come to SIEM to be separated depending on the rule that will succeed the flow along the path. If you correlate all of the flow, and probably you will not get the result that you hoped for. Here, as an example, I used our plugin for VS Code. You can initiate performance tests there, and again, to demonstrate that no filter is a bad mistake, I made a rule. So we have a rule that we initiate, and it has a filter for the event for which this rule is prepared, like making a user and adding it to the admin group. This is a regular rule, quite standard. So this is quite a common case. And in the second rule, there will be no filter. So all of the events would be going through this rule. There will be no response time, but because our rule will be processing all kinds of garbage that doesn't have anything to do with this logic, the processing time will be longer. You may think that the difference between the first and the second numbers is not very big, but let's increase the number of repeats, and you see that the difference is becoming more noticeable. With few events, the filter or no filter doesn't matter much, but as soon as we have more, if we have more events, if the events are coming from highly loaded system, then we will feel the difference and all the garbage that goes through our rules in the correlate. Well, that's not garbage really. They are events that other rules require for their logic, but these events will slow down our rule. The incorrect correlation window. This is the second mistake. Our correlation window is a rather precise entity, and you have to be careful handling it. If your correlation is too narrow, then the events will not be detected because the events came at different times. And you couldn't see the anomaly, you couldn't see the activity of a malicious user. But if your window is too big, this is also not a good idea, because there are some events that come to our system often, and if every time you would open a correlation window for them that lives a long life, then as a result you will end up with lots of windows. These windows will stay open for a long time, they will continue consuming your resources, and unfortunately this is not going to lead to anything good. Mistake number 3, non-optimized code. Well, people use weird constructions or multiple repetitions of the code or garbage functions. I mean, there are many different varieties of this mistake. Regexes, there is something else I wanted to discuss. Regexes are must-have for correlations because we should be able to retrieve some data from the events. Not always you are able to find these events using a regular function. You need to pass some code, and there you identify, the points that you are looking for. But you have to be careful also handling regexes because regexes take time. They increase the rule running time 4 to 10 times. So do not abuse them and do not write them if you don't understand how they work. Let's take a look at this example. So we've got this regex, a regular expression, and we've got a string, and we need to understand what kind of strings we have. So we've got the regex here. So there is a word, there is then a there is space after it, and it works for some events. It works just fine. But if you change the data a little bit, then your query will be taking forever to be processed. And in the browser may even freeze and wave goodbye. And you may think that this is a regular string. Why doesn't it work?
Люди, которые разбираются в регулярках, поймут, что...
But if you know anything about regexes, you will see that immediately that this string ends up with an exclamation mark. And in our regex, we are waiting for the end of the string. So our regex comes to the end of this line. It sees that it doesn't have a letter ending the string. The regex starts looking for all different combinations. Sorting through them, it takes forever. It takes a lot of resources. And we know that
не конец строки, а восклицательный знак.
We do not have the end of the line, the proper end of the line. We have an exclamation mark there. But if you rewrite this, knowing that you made a mistake, this regex is going to produce results. Error number 5, no shared standard, common standard, or single standard. Sometimes you really have to refer to style codes, to our more experienced colleagues' experience. For instance, using strange variables. Variables A and B, why do we need them? You may be thinking, why are we using them? What's in it for me? Variable A, what's this thing?
Которые мы используем как-то.
So it would be great if we could give legible names to the variables, names that would explain the meaning of this variable. In many SIEM systems, you can also set up correlation events. And if there is no common standard, then our correlation event will be performing every time differently. So you will be completing the core rule in many different ways. So again, you will end up seeing incidents if there is not enough data or something. And speaking about onboarding, if you already have patterns of coding, variables, the rules for I don't know, spaces, etc., then our rules are readable, they are more elegant, they are easier to understand. We will be able to pass on this experience. We, the more experienced colleagues, will be able to pass on this experience to the newcomers, to our younger colleagues. And the cherry on top, no testing, our correlation rules support a logic. So in a perfect world, we must always test our code to make sure that it does the thing we expect it to do. Because some small typo or a mistake or this issue with the regex, you will face it in production, which is not a nice thing. It would be great if at some early stage, as you are writing the rule, you would be able to detect an issue. So tests can help just to write a test for the to test the logic rule is not the correct approach. You should also generate some event, describe a negative scenario, a script, and test the positive scenario, test the negative scenario. And it's best if you launched also some benchmarks, some performance tests that would allow you also to see whether this is a very heavy rule, how many resources it eats up. And sometimes we do need to change the logic of the rules because the perpetrators are not sitting idle. We are also developing together with them. And as versions change, we must be mindful of the fact that our changes might have an impact on productivity, on performance. And then you will have fewer issues in production. Now, let's consider some takeaways. Well, first thing that I would recommend is to keep learning. We as analysts or as developers or as vendors, probably not every time we strive to understand the meaning of what we are doing. But if you know why you are doing this, it makes your life easier. To write correlation rule, you don't need to know absolutely everything. There are some aspects that will require some time on your side to understand them, but later your life will be so much easier. And it's best if you also optimize your rules, but optimization is still secondary. Your primary task is to understand that your rule is working properly, it performs the logic, it identifies the anomalies, it stops the abuser, and optimization is a bonus. And also I recommend that you introduce a standard into your practice, like best practices or something, and stick to the standard, some shared common standard, common libraries, common dictionaries, glossaries, something, not to change the rule every time if you need to add a new element, but to make everything right by design. Thank you very much. This is the end of my presentation. If you have questions, please write to me. I will be happy to talk to you. Thank you.